Hi there, and I've renewed my INFP license for the day, so I am going to be speaking, I believe, from an INFP perspective, but this is going to be a bit of a different video in that I'm talking to some topics that might be just me topics. This may or may not universalize. That is, the first part will for any personality type, but the second part is going to get a little bit weird. But I wanted to thank on this piece Bufo Periglenis and Radish Raven, who both have had some really good insights that have helped me establish what I wanted to talk about, how I wanted to frame this particular discussion, because I've had these ideas kicking around for quite some time, but I just didn't know how to approach them properly. And their bravery in talking about things such as migraines and the effects of migraines or synesthesia have been very helpful in in being brave enough to talk about some personal stuff that I don't usually talk about. So anyway, the main piece of this is just I wanted to describe the levels of awareness that everybody has. And this is going to be self-evident stuff, just self-evident things that people don't tend to think about. So first and foremost, we all have got the attention we pay to external sensory stimuli. So related to the SE cognitive function, but it mainly just means I'm speaking into this camera. I'm making noises with my mouth, and you're receiving those and watching what's on the video. You've got the room around you, as I have the room around me. I can see leaves falling down that will need raking. We all have this experience of, is it hot, is it cold? But we experience a set of sensory stimuli with our body. It's audio, visual, skin, scent, smell, taste, touch, and so forth. Add to that then the additional sensory of the feeling of inside the body, and that's more related to being aware of your posture, feeling your musculature and bones. Right now I'm feeling a good deal of soreness because of chores that I've done over the weekend, but there is that kind of internal sense of equilibrium inside the body, and how you feel that's not directly related to external sensory stimuli. Then you can go into, or this is more of a me thing, but I have a symptom of something that's called visual snow syndrome, which also ties into tinnitus, which tinnitus is probably familiar. It's a ringing of the ears. Visual snow syndrome is very similar. It's static that you see with your eyes. So effectively, if I look at a blank wall, it looks a little bit like a detuned television screen. I just get lots of dots and sparkles, a little bit of shimmering. There's some after image effects and dozens of other kind of little things that that have different degrees of appearance or that have different degrees of intensity at any given time. So visual snow syndrome is just a weird thing. I'll put a link in case anyone's interested in it. Like I said, I could go on, but does it really matter? The gist of what's important there is, in addition to seeing things that are there and hearing things that are sounds, I have a neurological condition that I see things that aren't there, and I hear sounds that don't really exist. And at any given time, I really can just close my eyes in silence, and I've got the equivalent of a background soundscape, and I never experience full darkness. There's always kind of fireworks and splotches of blooms of color and other things happening when I close my eyes. So it's a little bit like watching a lava lamp. I guess it makes meditation kind of interesting because you can't really block out the sensory. Even if you want to block it out, it still exists. So we've now gone through 3 different layers of awareness before we get now into the area of feelings that bridge the physical and the metaphysical. And with feelings or emotions, I'm not talking about FI directly, but with emotions, you can have things like anxiety and irritability or excitement or, fear, joy, love, what have you. These things all have a physical component to them, and I would say also a metaphysical component. They bridge the two, that you feel the physicality of an emotion, while at the same time it's a reaction to something that's experienced or something that is felt. I feel a little awkward talking about this as a side note, just because I like to describe FI as a rational, subjective judging function, and I don't like to tie FI back to emotions, but truth be told, emotions and feelings, there's definitely a bridge between the two. And with FI, you do tend to get a bridge into the realm of experiencing emotions that then become tied to the internal feeling functions. Next, we go beyond into the purely metaphysical, and that's where we can talk about the world of the rational, the world of ideas and of conclusions and of the abstractions and symbolism and memories. And there's sort of this whole 7-layer cake stack of all of the different things that we can experience inside our heads that have nothing to do with the sensory reality as we experience it at any given moment. And my point of all of this is to say, all of us, this is a universal experience. All of us have access to memories. All of us have a way to tune into our emotions. All of us have an intensity of feeling our own bodies and feeling the external stimuli of things that are happening around us. So none of this is INFP stuff. My theory or my conjecture here is that at least among some INFPs, if not many or most or possibly all, it becomes challenging to keep all of that stuff separate or to pay attention to any one attentional manner without having the other stuff kind of sneak in, get in the way. It just becomes difficult, for instance, to focus exclusively full attention on doing something that's related to external stimuli for an extended period of time and do it consistently and continue to pay attention at the expense of all the other stuff that's going on. There's a lot of stuff going on at any given time, and there's just an awareness, at least in myself, that all this stuff is happening, and it's an immense amount of constant distraction. So when it can all align for a short amount of time, for instance, when listening to someone or to reading a letter or an email, when you're really paying attention, there's an intensity there of applying kind of the feelings, the memories, the connections, the conclusions. You're sort of drawing all of this stuff out and building almost like a, what do they call that? I forgot the name for it now, but it's basically, you're building an intensity where you're focusing in entirely, a fractal, that's it. It's like you're zooming into a fractal and you're pulling apart all of these different things, and you're able to apply all of your kind of different levels of awareness to a particular thing for a brief amount of time in order to apply yourself to a problem or a challenge, or just to feel out what somebody else is communicating to you briefly. And then you end up back in this whole kind of morass of all of the different levels of awareness competing for, or levels of consciousness or competing for your active attention. So that's kind of where I think some of the things that some of my colleagues, for whom I'm very grateful for the things they've talked about, it may be a way of interpreting why we are the way we are. That it's one of the challenges of being an INFP is that you don't have a clear-cut, I'm going to focus in on this one thing and I'm going to do this one thing great. It's just sort of a diffusion of awareness. And this leads to the concept of silent waters run deep, where it doesn't necessarily mean that all those waters are one undertow pulling in the same direction. It just means there's a lot of stuff going on. It's not necessarily helpful. It's not necessarily insightful. There's not sage-like stuff going on. It's just a lot. So that's kind of the thing that I wanted to get at for the senses. Now, as you can imagine, having kind of all of these different layers of attention, if you're trying to attend to the external stimulus and then you're trying to do something in the social area, and you have this internal awareness and you have an awareness of your emotions, and it's all kind of competing for attention, you can see where it becomes relatively easy to become overstimulated if there's just too much going on. And that's not just external sensory, but overwhelmed with emotion plus external senses plus internal body sense plus metaphysically or trying to figure out the rationality or ideas of things and abstractions. And so it's like you're trying to compress everything through one limited capability to absorb awareness. And that just doesn't work. So that's where I have found effective ways to kind of block out most of the world. And I think we all do this. Again, this universalizes, that people just are able, maybe more naturally, to attend to a particular aspect of their consciousness or awareness at the expense of everything else. Just to say, this piece is important, the rest of this I can set aside. Again, this has not been always that easy for me. I found in the past to have myself easily overwhelmed by things, especially if there's a lot of changes happening in the external world that need kind of assertiveness that needs to be attended to, as in taking a proactive stance to change what's happening in the real world that's crap. I mean, it's just an awful thing to try and sort out. So I think that hopefully explains a little bit to why INFPs are always so reactive rather than assertive on things, or INxPs in general. That SE blind spot isn't really so much a blind spot. It's just if you're attending to all of these different levels, saying like, take action at this level here right now and pay complete attention to it so that you're going to do stuff that influences and changes the external world. I hate it. It's just, this is really hard to do. And so being assertive on the area of external stimuli, to take proactive action to bring about change, is very difficult. It takes an intentional manner that I'm not naturally attuned to do. And I think INFPs in general are not naturally attuned to do, because we are attending to all of these other parts that are layers of the awareness. They're layers to everyone's awareness. I don't want to take that away from anybody, but I think that is the thing that causes some of the consternation among INxPs. And, well, please let me know if this resonates. I know it's kind of a bizarre woo-woo thing that I went into, but hopefully some of this may make sense. And with that, I will leave you. Have a good afternoon, day, evening, night, wherever you may be. Bye for now.